in the last few days, somebody on this side has been making a complete and utter prick of himself. And you all know who that is, because you're looking at him. And I feel absolutely no animosity or any resentment or anything like that towards anybody who has decided to unsubscribe for me or send me nasty messages or post something on my comment on my profile or whatever, because I deliberately set out to invite such things and I got exactly what I deserved. So nobody who watches this video needs to feel bad about any sort of knee-jerk reaction or anything like that. Even if you buy what I'm going to say next, because I'm pretty sure that there will be several people who will watch this video and who will think that I'm still bullshitting. That is the nature of this game. You play with shit, you get covered in it. And for some people it will never wash off. That's the way things are. And I'm willing to live with this. Because I think that what happened is more important and goes much deeper than what people seem to think. I'm quite amused by the fact that so many people have decided to call this whole little spat, to call it Crackergate, as if it had anything to do with some cracker in some church, because ultimately it had nothing to do with that whatsoever. And of course you'll be looking at me thinking you are lying, because we saw that original video that I posted, and in which I was, well, apparently anyway, genuinely upset with what was going on in that church. Well, that video was not all it seemed. And let me explain. Let me explain what was actually going on. Because, do not get me wrong, I do think that what I witnessed in that video was childish and infantile behavior, and that video was quite tedious. There was nothing funny in that video, as far as I was concerned. But in the end, of course, that is only my opinion. Similarly, when I watched that video by Johnny and Naomi, where they're sniggering, not just at what certain Muslims believe in, but in something that they project on all Muslims, what they all seem to believe in, and even worse, sniggering about their language, representing something that is said by Muslims in a language that they don't understand, and rendering it as durka durka durka. Now that again, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, to which I am entitled, is completely infantile. But when Frank sent me that video on Thursday, he and I had a little Yahoo conversation over it. And at first I just thought, stupid video, boring, I'm not going to bother my ass with this. But then I looked at the comment section, and that is what triggered me into action. You will have all seen that comment section, no doubt, and the sort of attitude that was displayed towards anybody who had the gall to disagree with their assessment that their video was hilariously funny. And when I saw that, I realized that maybe now it's time to speak out. Because the wafer, the cracker, the church, that isn't so important. But this attitude is inexcusable, in my opinion. so it needed to be addressed. Now, posting a comment, I didn't think was going to do anything. I had already seen how they dealt with people who post comments. And I also know how people like Fact versus Religion and Nicotine 2, for example, deal with a calm video that explains why they're mistaken about something, or why you don't exactly disagree or agree with them about something. How they deal with that, they just blanket. I've seen that a number of times before. I've seen that happen a number of times before. So I thought, if I'm going to just post a video in which I calmly explain why their attitude wasn't really, going to help anything or something, that wasn't going to go anywhere. So I decided to do something different. I was going to cause a little bit of controversy. So I posted a video in which I stated my opinion, but I exaggerated it, and I made sure that the people addressed in that video would find it somewhat offensive. That's not a nice thing to do. And I perfectly agree with that. I accept that. But it got their attention, didn't it? It did exactly what I thought it would do. It got things heated up. And rather than just dismiss it as yet another opinion of somebody who they didn't care about anyway, they decided to start justifying themselves. And especially Peach was the person who addressed me and tried to explain to me why there was absolutely nothing wrong with that video. Now, sorry Peach and the others, it doesn't work like that. You see, the thing is that the response to a video that is supposed to be funny is going to be a gut response, no matter how you cut it. Either you look at it and you laugh, or you don't. In the first case, your video is going to be funny. In the second case, it's not. Now, it is perfectly understandable that somebody else might look at the same video and react differently. That is personal opinion. That is your personal response to watching something. I find certain things funny, and I find certain things not so funny. And other people might find the things that I find funny not funny, and they might, for example, find seeing a dog being tortured hilarious to watch, and it cracks them up. Now, if I tell such a person that I don't find that funny at all, they may want to try and explain to me why it is funny or why there is absolutely nothing wrong. But how do you think that's going to convince me of anything? Even if they could, if you could, for example, convince me that you didn't do anything wrong, it's hardly going to turn my opinion around, and it's hardly going to make me giggle like you did about the funniness of everything that was going on in there. Sorry, it's not how it works. My funny bone doesn't get tickled by me working out through some rational process as to why something is supposedly funny or not. And it also doesn't matter that something that is not funny, like sniggering at other people or sniggering at a situation, is not really funny. It doesn't change if the thing you're sniggering at is a thousands of year old organization that is guilty of all sorts of horrible things. That doesn't change the fact that what you did wasn't funny. But that's neither here nor there. It's a personal opinion. And everybody is perfectly entitled to arrive at their own conclusions after watching your video. And some people will find it funny, and some people will find it not funny. And how are you going to react? How can you react? The only valid response to anybody telling you that they didn't find your video funny was to accept that that is their opinion. You don't need to change your opinion that it was funny, and you don't have to try and explain to them why you didn't do anything wrong or anything of that nature. You should just have accepted that different people have different opinions. But you didn't, did you? Instead, you got more and more agitated over the fact that some people had the gall to criticize you. And this is, is just idiotic, really. Who do you think you are to tell people that their gut response to your video is invalid? Seriously, think about that for a moment. Get off your high horse. Get off your righteous indignation about the fact that people had the gall to criticize you. And just think about that for a moment. And think about how stupid that was. But there was no arguing. There was no give and take or anything like that. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to crank this up. And as I was continuing my conversation with Peach, I just slowly escalated it. And my responses were getting worse and worse and worse, and more and more and more idiotic and ridiculous. But at no point did Peach ever cop on to this fact. She just got more and more righteously indignant, but she never copped on that I might be trying to tell her something, because she was too preoccupied with trying to defend herself, too preoccupied with trying to paint herself into a good light. It even got to the point, right, where I pointed out when, in the conversation it came up that, it was said that she was only laughing at Nick doing the collection or something like that. And I said I found that very hard to believe, for a very simple reason, that somebody did ultimately palm that wafer with the clear intention of taking the piss out of it. And Peach was so indignant over this. She was so eager to paint herself into a better light that she told me that she actually ate the wafer. Think about what that means when she told me that. Not only she was trying to make herself look good, but she was clearly stabbing the person who actually did take the wafer to do something with it, was trying to stab them in the back. Of course, all the time thinking that what I was trying to talk to her about was that I had an issue with the fact that this wafer had been abused or something like that. No, the issue I'm having is the attitude that somehow you're above criticism. And it's not going to wash, no matter how much you protest. So when I realized that none of my arguments were getting through to you, that's when I decided now it's time to start taking the piss. And the way I did that, as you all know, was by posting a video in which I essentially just ridiculed you. I told you that I did the whole thing just for a laugh, just because I wanted to be able to point at you and laugh. The funny thing is, this is what is still getting me right now, is that I actually confided in a few people. I confided in a few people beforehand that this was what I was going to do. That I was going to post a video in which I was going to behave like a complete and utter dickhead. And one of them actually passed that message on. Think about that for a moment. They actually passed the message on to the 4 people involved. They knew what I was up to. And even then, they were so worked up about this. Well, Peach anyway was so worked up about this that rather than going, I know what you're up to, I'm on to you, I'm not going to let you play me like this, she just carried on as if she never knew about it. That is hilarious. Sorry, I still find that extremely funny. I also still find it really funny that people like Nicotine, even yesterday or today even I think it was still posting video about that bloody cracker and that bloody church, as if that had to do anything to do with anything. No, it's your attitude, folks, that stinks. And I do think, Peach, that is something that I actually pointed out to you very early on in the conversation. It's your attitude that I was having a problem with. Not that it was targeted at some religious organization or whatever. Just the sheer and utter gall of sitting there thinking that you're somehow above criticism and that nobody should say something in opposition to what you're saying or doing. How silly is that? Really? And then, when I posted that last video, and I pointed out the silliness of it all, and I was laughing at you and stuff like that, I thought, okay, this has been leaked, and it's not going to go anywhere. But somehow, the message was passed on, but not received, somehow. So people responded to it exactly the way I thought they would respond if they hadn't heard about it. So in actual fact, I did achieve what I set out to achieve. Now just think for a moment what triggered this whole thing off. Think for a moment what was the whole reason behind me going here. It was the way these people reacted when they were being criticized. Their response to being criticized. That was the cause of the problem. So my video was offensive. My video was infantile. And it was not funny, not at all. But there was a big difference. The big difference here was that in the case of my videos, you were the target. You were the victims of my unsavory, appalling behavior. And I would like you to just spend a few minutes to think about how did that feel to you? How did you like that? And then explain to me again why the people in that church who just happened to be there minding their own business deserve to be treated like that by you. Because inquiring minds really like to know.